Welcome to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. Each week on this program, Jeff and his guests share their expertise, personal anecdotes, and the latest industry news to keep you in the loop. Now, to provide you with insight and help you navigate the consistently changing world of real estate lending, here is your host for The Mortgage Voice, Jeff Barton.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. 888-713-2929 is our telephone number over here at the studio. If you pick up the phone and give us a call, we can help you. We're going to help you in a lot of different ways in today's show. And why do I say that? We've got a number of guests coming on. We're going to talk about different aspects of what we do in our business, whether it's investigating a problem, whether it's looking for solutions, whether it's insurance, whether it's just plain listening to you and trying to figure out what the best avenue to solve your problem is. And most of the people who come on the show do exactly that. I try to ferret out those that want to just pitch and sell. I hate those people, mostly because I am the worst person to sell to. I'll sit there for about 30 seconds and I will be so incensed that someone is not just talking to me like a human being. So if you're looking for somebody in our business, right, and you want to talk to them like a person, but you want good information, but you don't want to be lectured at. Now, maybe you're the type of person who likes to be told what to do, who likes to be lectured at, who likes to have someone say, hey, you should be doing X, Y, Z. I know over where I live in Malibu, there are a ton of real estate agents who do exactly that, who are very aggressive, who seem to, really like the experience of being the expert. Well, that's not what we do at Malibu Funding, and that's not what I do personally. I'm here to try to help you understand what the process is in whatever you're doing, whether it's a loan or whether it's a real estate transaction. And that bleeds into everybody who works at the company. Malibu Funding, of course, is the sponsor for the show. They hired me, and they're a good company to work for. There are a lot of good companies to work for, and looking for that person who will fit your style and your way of communicating and your way of wanting to know more is I think the process that you go through, right? We're not for everybody, because those people who do like to be lectured at and talked to are people who need to be led. The definition of leadership, what is it? It's being able to tell people what to do. And there are many leaders in the real estate industry who will do exactly that. I'm going to look into some of the things that the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, a guy named Yun, Y-U-N, we've talked about him before. He has some interesting things to say about the market conditions, what's happening this year in the real estate world at the end of the year, and why it's a unique situation that really doesn't follow the norms or the trends in the industry and what's been going on in the last few years. So first up, what I want to talk about is the availability of housing in the market and why there isn't any currently. Now, this year, 2019, we are currently in October of this year, we have seen the market dramatically change. At the beginning of the year, on this program and many others, and you probably read online many different places, we were looking for interest rates to top 5%. 5.5% was probably where we were headed. We were all looking at a slowdown in the mortgage market, refinance market die, and we were looking for the real estate market to start to expand its inventory because fewer people would be able to afford to buy because the interest rates were up. And therefore, what we would have is a more normalization of real estate. Real estate prices would come down because there would be fewer buyers. Therefore, in a direct relationship to fewer buyers, you usually have prices come down. This is what we were expecting at the beginning of the year. Quite the opposite has happened, but not for the normal reasons. One of the things that happened towards the middle of the year is we began to feel the Fed's lowering of the short-term interest rates. We began to feel the trade imbalance based on the war that is going on in the trade war between China and the United States, and some of the things going on in Europe, i.e. the Brexit, England leaving the EU. And all of these things together began to change the interest rates here in the U.S. Interest rates went from 4.5 to 4.75% to where they're now at, and let me make sure that I'm quoting this correctly, about 3.75. So they've fallen roughly a point to a point and a half over the last 10 months, which has dramatically changed everything we thought about that was going to happen at the beginning of the year. So let's fast forward to today. What do we have today? We have low interest rates, which is good. It's good because it stimulates buyers to get into the market. If you can't afford it 4.5 to 5%, maybe you can afford it at 3.5 to 4%. The monthly income that you're going to need to qualify for a loan is less. And the amount of money that you do make is stretched farther in the amount of purchase that you can purchase. These are good things for people who want to get into the market, i.e. we have new home buyers in the market, and that is a good thing. We like to see new people in the market. We like to see millennials. We like to see Gen X, Gen Y. We like to see newer, younger. We need these people in the market in order to make sure that our housing sector is doing well. Because let's face it, anybody over 50 is either selling their house to go rent or they're scaling down their large property to get into a smaller property. Kids are gone, empty nest they call it. So you don't need the same space. And because a lot of people who are 65 and older are now no longer getting the same income that they used to get when they were working because they're now retired. So the upkeep of the house, the expense that you're going to have to spend each and every month is too much. So they sell the house or they, sell it to a relative. All of these things are different than when we thought at the beginning of the year. We were like, okay, this is the way it's going to go. Nope, it went over this. Now, we haven't touched on the political situation in the U.S. and how that affects people's sentiment, their feeling about what's going on. But I got to tell you, most people are working. Wages have gone up for most people. And the prospects of maintaining an economic stability, and that's the most important thing when you go out there and get a loan. It's called the ability to repay rule. It's the one thing that we can't really predict, but the indicators suggest. And that's what we look at when we're trying to determine whether you should get a loan for $500,000-$600,000, because that's what it's going to take in many communities in Southern California. In some communities, $1 million. If you look at the median home price in Orange County, California, you're going to see, that's what it is, $1 million. It's about $700,000-$800,000 in Los Angeles County, San Bernardino, Riverside counties. And thank you very much for listening each and every week. We want to say hey to KCAA, KMET, and of course K-Tahoe up in that region of the state. The reason and why we look at all of this data and what we're trying to do in order to inform you is that the market has changed. Yes, it's more affordable. However, because of the affordability and more people and a lot of new-time people in the market, the housing inventory has dried up. Now, what do I mean by that? In the U.S., we currently have about, where's the number here? I think they're saying the home supply currently is, drumroll please, 1.83 million homes are for sale in the U.S. Okay, divided by 100, that's 180,000 times 2. It's about 360,000 homes available if you do it evenly per state. Now, a state like California, where we need 1 million homes a year built because we have so many people here, that's not going to cut it. But in states that have, very few people, Montana, South Dakota, even a lot of the states down south that don't have a tremendous amount of population, that would be okay. So this entire housing market, different from the way we thought at the beginning of the year, changed now to whereby rates are good, inventory is low. So what are you going to do about it if you're looking for a property right now? It is a good time of year because a lot of people drop out of the market with the holidays coming up. I think you need to get with that person that you trust, somebody like a listener, somebody at my company, for instance, Malibu Funding, and let them help you wend your way through both the real estate options and the mortgage options. Take your time, but be prepared to go when it's time to go. Anyway, I'm Jeff Barton. I'm your voice in the mortgage industry, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton. We'll be right back with more in just a moment. For more information on today's topic, email Jeff Barton at info@malibufunding.net. Now, back to The Mortgage Voice with your host, Jeff Barton.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. 888-713-2929, the telephone number. If you pick up the phone and give us a call, you can do that. Leave us a message if I don't pick up. And the reason I'm not picking up is because, quite frankly, I'm on the air waiting for you to give me a call so that I can call you back later. And the reason I want to call you back later is because most of the questions we get based on those telephone calls are complex. It's like, okay, I have this amount of income, but I make certain amount of income 1099, and then I have a job that I do 4 days a week whereby I'm making $15 an hour. However, I'm also an investor, and that passive income comes to me 3 times a year, and it's like this. And I also am a VA, a veteran, so I get as you can imagine, you cannot answer that over the air. Why? Because it's complex. The income needs to be really looked at. One of the things about this particular market is that all the lenders are looking at income. Income, the ability to repay, the need for us to be able to say, okay, this person not only has the likelihood to have this kind of income continue, but we have to verify that the income you're telling us about really exists. We have had many examples of whereby someone would estimate or guesstimate certain amount of income based on what they did last year, but the documentation did not support it, i.e., let's say I have overtime last year, and I made $30,000 in overtime based on my monthly hours that let's say you're a 40-hour-a-week person, but you're working generally 50 to 60 hours a week, and that overtime pay. Well, many lenders will not accept 100% of that overtime pay. They'll only accept a certain percentage of it. Why? Because you can't predict overtime pay. You don't know if you're going to be able to both get it or if you're going to do it. So to use that type of income for qualifications on a loan, there's only a certain, I believe it's 75% of that amount, because as I said, it's just not predictable what kind of income you're going to get based on using your overtime pay. These are the things that we look at. These are the things that are important when you're out there trying to get that loan. Okay, so earlier segment, I talked a little bit about housing and why the housing inventory is down. It's about the same as it was a year ago, right? No, same as it was last month. That's what the article said by Jan Swanson. It said it's about the same as last year. I mean, I did it again. It's about the same as last month, but it's down from last year about 2.5%, 3%, which means that there's less properties available on the market now than there were a year ago. Now, why is that? Well, we went through some of the issues with it and why and the supply and demand, but I want to talk a little bit personally about what I've experienced in my own hometown after the fires of last year. Burned half of my city down. And one of the reasons I think not only locally, but in the state and nationally, there's just way too much red tape in trying to do anything. So in my own particular town, guy had his house burned down. Actually, there's 600 of these houses that burned down, and recently fires out in the Riverside area. There's always fires in California, and there's always communities under threat. So what does a city or what does a municipality do to try to help these people? Well, in our own case, in this city, and this may sound familiar to some of you, but it certainly points out what I'm trying to say about the bureaucracy of government. And one of the problems that we have in the housing sector is the difficulty by which we have to get things done quickly. A year has gone by since the fire. It was actually November 9th, so almost a year has gone by. Of the 600 houses that were, burned down, 25 have had permits issued in a year. The city went out 2 weeks ago and hired, this is of course 11 months after the fire, what they call a coordinator for the fire burnouts. So the city's answer to be able to provide service and get people permits to rebuild their houses is to spend money on another bureaucrat. Now, to me, that's the wrong approach. Here's the right approach, I think. The fees in the cities, the required documentation in the cities, should be exempted. Now, what do I mean by required documentation? If you're going to buy or build a new house anywhere, or you're going to remodel a house anywhere, you need certain things. And in my particular city, as in the city of Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, any of the other cities, certainly up on the I-15 corridor, in Hemet and Hesperia and Paris, what you need is you need building and safety, health, fire department, grading permits, and a number of others. So how many of these are actually necessary? Think about this for a second. There are some lots where I live which are on canyons, and the water that cascades during a rainstorm falls from the property down into the canyon and goes out into wherever it goes, the ocean, I guess. Why would this person need a grading permit? Okay, what is a grading permit? A grading permit means that if you disturb the land in any way, you have to direct the water from your property when it rains normally to a public street. This is the code in Malibu. It's the code in Los Angeles County. Now, I agree. If you've got downhill neighbors, yeah, why exactly? Because you don't want them flooded out. But in the cases that we're talking about here in my own particular community, that particular necessary element of your rebuild permit is ridiculous. And because nobody will step up and say, I take responsibility from the city's standpoint to be able to say, you don't need that. Okay, what do you need? You need to protect yourself from fire? Yeah, I kind of get that. But do you really need a 24-foot driveway when your particular house hasn't had one for 50 years and it just burned down? That's one of the requirements now. When there was a fire, the fire department did not show up because it was so overwhelming. You're on your own. So a lot of the people who have fire issues because of the driveway or because of other, non-exempt solutions, they wanted to put in 1,500-gallon tanks to be able to satisfy the need for water on the property like a fire hydrant or for fire protection services. Nope, it's not good enough. Okay, so now you've got two different departments preventing this person who had their house burned down from getting a permit until they solve the problem. Now, how do you solve all these problems? Of course, you got to spend money. You need reports, you need experts, you need everybody to line up at the trough with their hands out and mostly in your pocket. Now, why would you do that to a bunch of people who just had their houses burned down? And then your answer is to hire somebody else to complicate the matters even more. I think a lot of these necessities to getting permits in burnout situations are ridiculous. They could cut the process down to almost nothing. They could do retroactive permits, i.e., let the person build within the parameters of their old house and then come in and inspect post-build. They could do that too. And issue permits post-build. They could do that too. I just think that when we deal with solutions to the housing crisis, the housing problem here in San Bernardino, Riverside, and by the way, the biggest problem of them all is the homeless on the streets. Millions of them all across the state. They just, up in San Francisco, you cannot rent an apartment, buy a home without a homeless person encampment living on the street. Now, what do we do about it? How do we handle it? Has to be simple. Person needs a place to stay. What are you going to do about it? You need to place them either in a home or they have to move on down the street. That's the only solution for people who need mental health care. They need food, medical care, shelter. I understand people have rights and they want to get out on their own, but at the same time, the person who pays for a $2 million house on a hill in San Francisco, guess what? They have rights too. We need to work together, streamline this governmental process, especially as I spoke about in the permitting, and try to move it along so we can increase the housing available across the state of California. I'm Jeff Barton. I'm your voice in the mortgage industry. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton. We'll be right back with more in just a moment. For more information on today's topic, email Jeff Barton at info@malibufunding.net. Now, back to The Mortgage Voice with your host, Jeff Barton.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry, 888-713-2929, our telephone number. If you pick up the phone and give us a call, leave me a message. I'll get back to you ASAP with whatever questions you have. I'm going to have the answer. Well, if I don't have the answer, I'm going to find somebody that does. Part of what we do is bring solutions, but I don't have all the solutions. I don't have all the answers. What I do have is a need to help, and I think that's what the main focus of what we do in the mortgage business. It sounds like a used car salesman line, but it's really true. We're helping people find a home, find a place to live, a house, a dwelling, a place, a roof over their head. There's so many needs out there in terms of housing. If we can help a little bit, and by that I mean getting you the financing for it, that's really what we're trying to do, and what I've been trying to do for the past 20 plus years. Over at Malibu Funding, that's the sponsor of the show. I want to thank them for sponsoring us each and every week and also bringing us on air to you. KCAA, KMET, and K-Tahoe, great stations. We reach many, many people in the Inland Empire and certainly up in the Tahoe area. So thank you very much each and every week for listening. I want to bring to the show someone I've been trying to bring on for, Rita, how long's it been? 5 years I've been trying to get you on?
It's been a few years.
Yes, it has. Okay. It's Rita King. She's a licensed private investigator. And first off, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show, Rita.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. This is great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Okay, so people out there in the listening audience are thinking, why are we having someone who does investigations? Well, in our business, as in many businesses, there are needs to find out about people, about businesses, about certain financial institutions, because like everything else, we are rife for all kinds of bad things to happen. So in order to facilitate, the good things happening, we need services like Rita's, but I'll let her explain. Rita, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Well, as a licensed investigator, I have access to trade databases. I've been an investigator for over 20 years. I'm heavily experienced in asset and background investigations, pre-employment investigations, and et cetera. I do a lot of work for the insurance companies, civil defense firms on behalf of the insurance companies, and mortgage brokers as well.
Right.
What happens is, I have ways to verify provided information and or prove and or disprove provided information. And this actually helps all my clients are professionals, whether it's mortgage brokers, attorneys, any business professional. And this would help. I can help. I'm kind of like the right-hand person, behind the scenes. So I can point the direction and where to look and find information, and that in turn my clients can then follow through and legally obtain information that would be beneficial to their specific case or situation.
Let me interrupt just for a second, just so I can clarify.
Sure.
So a lot of businesses have to, by law, do background checks on their employees, right? So this is the kind of work you do as well, right? You're looking at people, looking into their background to make sure that the company who's hiring them is in full compliance.
That's right, or that they say they are who they say they are, or that the background information matches to what they've provided.
Right.
Criminal background information, for example, civil litigation,
Do you find
yes, absolutely.
Do you find that when you're doing this type of work, do you find most people are pretty honest, or do you find that most people have something going on? I mean, in general, you don't have to get specific, but I'm just curious as to how the trend is.
Well, it really depends on the nature of the business. If these are cases that are being investigated through, say, insurance companies, I deal with insurance fraud.
I see.
Oftentimes, the cases that come to me, oftentimes if something doesn't look right, it likely is not right.
Right.
There's something there. Now, finding that or proving that, that's a whole other thing. That's where my experience and intuition comes into play, honestly. But for your average person, applying for a job, I think that most people now are aware because a lot of this stuff, having to do background investigations, pre-employment investigations, it's pretty much out there. And so I would say that type of scenario, just an applicant, for the most part, things pan out, things match up. It's the big picture, big, insurance fraud, mortgage fraud, this type of thing on a large scale. This is where, you have to dig a little bit deeper. This is where I find that oftentimes if something doesn't seem right, it's not right.
Right. Now, when you're doing these investigations, your intuition, you said that you use your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Has this, you must have developed this over 20 years of doing work, right? To know when something's right, to know when something's not right. And how do you proceed? What do you document if you're just sensing it, or do you just keep digging?
Well, what I'll do is first it's how things look on paper trail, right? Background information, what data, civil, criminal looks like. Then oftentimes I'll interview witnesses. I'll take witness statements. This is when this is a whole other type of, this is where the intuition kicks in a bit differently.
I see.
So what looks good on paper is not always what may fit a scenario, or what fits a scenario doesn't always pan out when I do a one-on-one interview. Or in taking a recorded statement. Oftentimes I could flush through information like that. So I always advise my clients, on paper, this is what this looks like. So should you hire this person? Does this look okay? Well, yes, but something isn't quite right because of the interview process, or my follow-up, or the surveillance that I conducted. Something is not quite right. And so it's kind of there's separate steps. And so there's paper investigation, and there's, person-on-person contact, whether it's surveillance or
Rita,
interview.
Give us an example of some horrific or salacious, only because it's media and we like to put those things out there. It's more interesting. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't have to give names or anything, but what's the most, outrageous or salacious thing that you would say that you've uncovered or been involved with?
Well, I would say one of the big aha type things would be false injury cases. Personal injury attorneys take on clients on contingency, and without realizing or even really determining whether these injuries are in fact correct. And these could be auto collisions, these could be workers' comp issues. It doesn't really matter. Surveillance uncovers a lot. Social media searches uncover a lot.
Right.
And when these people are then faced with the evidence, I've had to testify as an expert witness in a trial. I've had to take sworn depositions. I've had to give a sworn deposition. And I would say that's where some of the juicier stuff comes out, is people claiming, I can't move, and then they're off running and, traveling the country and, vacationing and whatnot. So social media, surveillance, those are really key parts of an investigation. And those, I would say, are for cases that are going further into, say, pre-trial status. That's where a lot of that type of field work is done.
Interesting.
Internet-based and field work. That will truly uncover day-to-day behaviors.
Rita, shout out your phone number for people who want to get in touch with an excellent investigator, somebody who...
Absolutely. It's Rita King. It's Rita King Investigations. My number is 818-309-8146. And my website is ritakpi.com. All my contact information is listed there, as well as some of the services. but not limited to all, are on my website. So absolutely.
Excellent. I've got one more question for you. You're a mom.
Sure.
You're a working person. How do you fit it all together and still, have time for yourself?
Who said I have time for myself? And number two, in the 50 hours in one given day, it's amazing how much you can get done.
It's exactly. You just add hours to the day. No, I appreciate that very much.
I just add hours. I just fudge with the numbers. It's amazing. It's amazing. One thing I've learned too, in just my years of experience in dealing with male subjects, female subjects, I find that the females tend to. Men tend to compartmentalize a little better, right? Structure. Women tend to multitask a little better.
I see.
It's just a generalization, but from my experience. So I multitask. Let's just leave it at that.
Rita, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you very much. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. That's been Rita King from Rita King Investigations, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton. We'll be right back with more in just a moment. For more information on today's topic, email Jeff Barton at info@malibufunding.net. Now, back to The Mortgage Voice with your host, Jeff Barton.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. 888-713-2929, our telephone number. Write down your questions. I know you have a lot of them. It's been an interesting show so far. And then after the show, give me a call, and I will, pick up, and I will answer your questions, and I will try to direct you to the best possible solution out there in the marketplace. I mean, there are a lot of people that can give you answers. The question for you always is, am I getting the right information? So on the show, we bring experts, people in the field, people in, not just me, because I'm just a guy, right? I know I've been in the business for a long time, but I don't know everything about, let's say insurance, or I don't know everything about real estate, or I don't know everything about all the different facets that go into real estate and mortgage products, services, and solutions, which are ultimately why you're listening to the show. You want to buy a house. You want to know if you can afford it. How do you know if you're choosing the right real estate? Anyway, I brought today a guy who is in the insurance business, been in the insurance for a long time. Mike, how long have you been in the business?
Oh, Jeff, it feels like forever, but I've put in a solid 12 years at this point.
Excellent. This is Mike Browlette. He is from Beach Financial Group, an independent mortgage insurance company. And I asked him to come on because I wanted to talk a little bit about, you finally get that house, you're in it, or maybe you're just renting, or maybe, you got a lot of stuff. Your personal life is, in that home. How do you protect it? And so I brought Mike on to talk a little bit about the insurance, the products that they deliver, and how exactly they do protect people's home. Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so give us an example of some of the things that you do for people when they call up and say, look, I'm going to buy a house. I need some insurance. What do I do?
That's a loaded question, Jeff, because there's a lot of different things come from it. But the easiest thing that I always tell people, there's some really basic information that we need to start looking at a home. Obviously, the first thing you need is what's the property address that you're purchasing.
Right.
When do you think it's going to close? Doesn't have to be exact. We can always change the effective date of the policy. Your full name and date of birth for yourself and any other partner that's in buying the home with you. What the current residence address is, because there are reports that get run not only on the claims history of the property that you're purchasing, but also on your personal claims history.
Interesting. Let me stop you for just 1 second. You talked about claims history from the seller?
So the probably will not shock anybody to find out that the insurance industry has a database that they all share.
Okay.
And there's two different kinds of databases out there. The first is for almost every property that there is in the country, there's a claims history against that property. In other words, if that property address has had a claim against it, it will pop up on a report, and it will say the dollar amount, and it will say the date that the claim happened, and it will sometimes give you information as to the nature of the claim. So that's on the property, whether you have owned it or not.
Right.
It will be, so let's say you're a prospect and you're looking to buy a house, and you're looking, how much is the insurance going to be? There's been a claim on that home in the last 5 years. It's going to pop up. And it's going to say, this was a water claim not caused by weather for $25,000 on this date.
Right. And that is...
Now, that can have a negative impact on you as the would-be purchaser of that property, because now what will happen is most insurance companies are going to want to know, okay, so what exactly happened? Where in the house did it happen? How was it repaired? Do we have documentation and photos that show the repair area? Because what they need to determine is this a structural problem, or was this a one-off, a pipe just burst behind a wall in the den and, it's all patched and repaired, or is the house deteriorating? That's what they're looking at.
Oh, that's excellent information. I bet most people listening to the show never thought of that. The idea that your insurance guy, gal, whoever it is that's helping you, can really direct you to whether, maybe in a situation like that, you don't even want to buy the house. You want to move on to the next house. Or,
it can be difficult. So I've had this happen a few times in my career. In one particular case, there was a massive claim, and it turned out that it was a problem with the deck. Now, the deck had been replaced the year before. Brand new composite deck, beautiful kind of deck that everybody wished they had, great view, etc. But prior to that, that deck was a wormwood-infested piece of, wooden structure that was literally falling apart and was a huge hazard. So in that case, the seller was able to produce all the documentation. They showed the contract that they had, the fact that it was paid in full, photos of the brand new deck. It showed, the billing for the carting away of the old material. It became a non-issue. But it has happened at times with water claims and things like that. We've seen the new buyer's premium get affected negatively, meaning they're going to pay more because there was an issue with the property.
Right. That's what the question I was going to ask. And these problems that do pop up when you do your investigation or you run through that database, does that affect the cost of the new insurance? And you just said yes.
Unfortunately, it can, and it's a really difficult conversation to have with somebody, because while they may not have seen the premium prior, when I run through everything, I see, okay, so let's just say we have a premium for $1,200, but then you run the reports, it turns out there's a claim, and you see the premium jump up to $1,900.
Right.
I would prefer not to tell them what the original amount was, because that never ends well. But when you end up telling people, look, there's been a big claim on the property, it's about $1,900 or whatever the price would be to insure it, here's why, here's what we can do to mitigate it, here's when, if there's no other claims, it will fall off, because they do fall off over time.
I see.
So it's tough for a first-time buyer, because people are usually, they may have a tight budget, or it's kind of a home where, they're kind of, being careful with their dollars, and, they're looking to make sure everything goes as far as it can. The issue, though, with that is it doesn't matter which carrier you're going to. If there's been a big claim on the property, it's going to pop up no matter which insurance company you go to, and it's going to have an impact on the price that you pay. There's no getting around it.
Let me ask you a question, too. What do you like more about your job? Is it dealing with the people, or is it about providing the products that they need? Or is that...
I love that question. So what I always tell everybody that I speak to, our agency is kind of unique. We are actually owned by, he's a U.S. citizen now, but when he first came over here in 2009, he was a British national. He came over here. And believe it or not, there's a huge British expat community in Los Angeles. There's something like almost 40,000 families in the West Hollywood area alone.
Wow.
And so when people relocate from the UK, Ireland, Australia, things along those lines, and they'll look on social media sites, and they'll find this site called Brits in LA or Aussies in LA. The guy who owns our agency, he founded those sites, and so people will type in there, how do I get insurance? Where do I get car insurance?
Right.
If you ask that on those sites, you're going to get bombarded. Call Beach Financial Group. Call Beach Financial Group. So when they call, you talk about people who are flummoxed.
Right.
Most people that are born and raised in the United States don't really understand insurance.
Right.
and you're taking somebody who may know it well over there, but I can assure you, insurance around the world is totally different than it is here in the United States. So what I tell everybody is really simply this. This is what I like most about my job. I don't sell insurance. I call myself an insurance interpreter. I take this language called insurance that is incredibly full of acronyms and double speak and a lot of different long, boring stuff. And what I try to do is I try to make it so that reasonably intelligent people can understand what the heck the insurance company is saying, what the heck you need, and then what we need to do to try and fill in those gaps, or perhaps you have too much in one area, that kind of thing. So I'm an insurance interpreter. So from that perspective, I kind of like dealing with the people. It's nice when you're finally able to help them. Nobody, especially in Southern California, likes the price of any insurance. They're just, it's just simply not a bargain.
No, you're right.
We're all going to pay for it. The question is, and I also tell all of my clients, look, I spend their money like I spend my own money, and I'm a cheapskate. So I don't want to spend their money any more than what I have to, but we try to get them the best possible coverage at the best possible premium and move on from there. So, give them some tips and things like that where we can save some money here. Maybe we play around with the deductibles. Maybe there's certain coverages that we can reduce that aren't as critical, that sort of thing. So,
Mike, shout out your phone number for people.
310-414-2100, extension 1003.
Excellent. Mike, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Have you back again, because insurance there's so much need and so little understanding, as you so eloquently expressed. I appreciate that.
A real pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. That's Mike Browlett from Beach Financial Group. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton. We'll be right back with more in just a moment. For more information on today's topic, email Jeff Barton at info@malibufunding.net. Now, back to The Mortgage Voice with your host, Jeff Barton.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry. 888-713-2929 is our telephone number. Pick up the phone, give us a call, leave a voicemail for me. I'm busy right now, and I'm on the phone, and I will be there as soon as I can, because I know you've got questions. I know you want answers. I can supply some. I can't supply them all. We got better people on the show all the time who have more answers, better answers, smarter answers. We do what other shows do not do. This isn't a rah-rah, sell me kind of show. This is more about bringing information to you that you can use, either making more money so that you can buy a bigger house, either getting more money so that you can buy a bigger house, or maybe you want to have a lower interest rate, so that's right, you can buy another bigger house. Anyway, with me today is a couple of people in the investment field, and I really appreciate them coming to the show. One is a person that I've known for a number of years, Rita Lonstein. She's a financial consultant at Revolution Financial Management. And with her, I believe, is someone who also works there, Brian Altunian.
Good. Thank you for having us on the show, by the way. I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. Now, both Brian and Rita are not here in the studio. They're dialing in from different locations, so if there's a little lag in the sound, then that's why. Can I get a little understanding, explanation of how you guys are helping your clients to achieve some financial success?
Sure. So basically, we're in the financial industry, and many people in the financial industry, they basically, all they want to know is how much do they have to invest. That's really the only question that many people in our industry are asking. With us, we take a holistic view of people's financial situation. We're going to look at their debt. We're going to look at their cash flow. We're going to look at their insurances that they have and where they're saving their money, how much they're saving, and also going as far as estate plan, just to make sure that they're protected from whatever it is, that whatever ifs come up. So, and really the goal is when we sit down with somebody is to put them in a better financial shape than when we found them, and basically get them on the path to financial independence. So
Brian, let me ask you a question. How long have you been with your particular company, and what do you enjoy most about dealing with clients? Is it about solving their financial problems, or is it about bringing them to the next level financially?
That's a great question. First of all, I've been here with this company about 5 years, I've been involved in investments in the public market for now about 14 years. Wow,
Right.
15 years. And so I think the answer to your question is really both. I'm this organization is committed, as Rita was saying, to something slightly different. Most companies in the financial industry are just trying to accumulate assets under management.
Right.
And so if you don't have a certain number of liquid assets, if you don't have $250,000, most firms in our industry won't talk to you. So that's great. While that represents 1% of the American public,
Right.
who's handling the other 99%? So our perspective is everybody should have a chance to have access to financial information, good financial information, getting an understanding about how finances work. And so to Ravit's comment about a holistic perspective, our goals are to provide education for folks and
Right.
get them to understand how money works, how you can grow it, keep it, hold on to it. And to your point, to be able to, if buying a house is on their horizon, what they need to do to make sure that they can qualify for the best house, make sure that they've got their, get all their ducks in a row. So for me, I get a tremendous amount of value out of helping folks see, understand how their dollars work, how they can actually add some velocity to growing the money, protecting it, not overpaying the government, and not necessarily, putting it in the hands of the banks that are interested more in charging fees, and really try to put more money into our clients' pockets. And I get a lot of tremendous value out of helping our clients achieve their goals.
Now, I know that there's a lot of resistance in the marketplace towards financial advisors, towards real estate brokers, mortgage brokers, anybody that has to do with money. There is reticence, especially in a sophisticated market like Southern California, where you have a lot of people competing for those people. How do you overcome, either one of you, this resistance or reticence to be able to trust you? How do you gain trust of your clients?
Well, Marie, I'll answer that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
First of all I would say a majority of our clients come through referrals.
I see.
So often when we get a referral, it's a trusted source
Yes,
that
it
makes
is.
an introduction. As I'm sure happens in your market as well.
Absolutely.
That's the first. And the second thing is, because we don't represent any one single company, we actually represent the entire industry. Our solutions involve resources from multiple corporations. So, for example, if you're looking at life insurance, and we talk a lot about life insurance, so that's
Right.
a big part of our structure. Most folks have a complete misunderstanding of how life insurance works. But I have over 300 companies that we represent. And so while a Pacific Life policy may be right for one client, it may not be right for another. And so Transamerica or Nationwide or some of the other premier providers give us the opportunity to customize the solution that's suitable for the client at whatever level they're at. And so knowing that we're not really trying to sell a product, we always say that we try to do two things. We make friends and we solve problems. And so once we take that position, our client, the resistance seems to melt considerably because they know that we're not really in this for the sale necessarily. We're in this for a solution and a long-term relationship, and engaging them in the conversation that involves education as well, so they feel empowered. They're empowered to make the decision. We don't charge our clients anything to sit down and have the conversation with them.
Right.
We make recommendations on where they should go to get to their goal, and then if we introduce them to a financial institution, those companies pay us a fee for bringing them a customer, like their customer acquisition cost. So knowing that we're not out there with our hands, open, looking for a check, to sit down and have the conversation, it melts a lot of that reticence and that resistance because we're trying to solve a problem that they perceive they have.
Now, you mentioned insurance, life insurance specifically, as a product that you guys that you utilize a lot with clients. Give us some other examples of products that maybe aren't necessarily out there in the general, lexicon of what's going on for insurance or what's going on in investment properties. What do you guys like to see people get into as an investment?
A few things. Rita, do you want to take this, or do you want me to?
I could say just a couple things, and then you could add, I'm sure.
Good.
The main thing is, what I was going to say is that, like, when we're talking about specifically what the client needs, because, obviously from case to case, things are just completely different. And the other thing we ask them is what they feel, by the way, their main focus, their main attention is on. So as well. So, when you look at all these things, it depends on their situation. But, Brian, you can get into all the different products, but it basically depends, I think, firstly, is what they're trying to accomplish. If somebody comes in for a specific, I don't know, they want to buy a house, or they have attention on, putting their mother, let's say they want to buy a house. So, like he said, okay, this is the steps you take to do that. But basically, we ask them, in terms of an investment, what do you want your money to do for you? Like, what is the purpose of this allocation of the money? And then you basically take the steps to do that. But, Brian, you can get into all the other options.
We have about a minute left.
I was... Go ahead, Jeff.
No. We just have about a minute left, so sorry.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'll really quickly, I'll just say there are a lot of things that most of the general American public thinks when they're putting their money away towards retirement or towards a long-term play. They put their money in a tax-deferred account like a 401k or an IRA. Right. They're putting their money in taxable accounts like, obviously, the stock market, mutual funds,
right,
and those types of things. But very few folks are looking at tax-free and tax-advantage of vehicles, and that's the area that we educate a lot on. So, obviously, a Roth IRA is something that we talk about, municipal mutual funds. Again, that's where life insurance falls, and educating them about how life insurance can be utilized to actually accumulate wealth. It's not only for wealth accumulation, but it's also for wealth distribution. And so that's where that component comes in. For those who have 401ks or IRAs, into the 401k at a job that they're no longer at, we talk to them about rolling it over into an annuity product that's actually, say, a fixed indexed annuity product that will protect the downside from a volatile market. And I think that's the key. For us, we know that there's a lot of volatility in the stock market, so having your money invested all in the stock market may not be the best, most prudent situation, especially if you're looking to retire within the next 5 or 10 years. To eliminate the volatility, we look at fixed index products that protect from the downside and give them participation in the upside. That's really where we focus a lot of our time and attention.
Excellent. We're talking to Brian and Rita, and they are both investment financial consultants over at Revolution Financial Management. Could you shout out a phone number? We're up against the clock here, but I want to give people a chance to be able to contact you with some of this great financial advice.
Great. Rita, you want to give your...
Yeah. It's 818. Sorry, the phone cut out for a second. 818-231-9251.
And that's Ravit Lonstein. And Brian, you want to shout yours out as well?
That would be great. Thank you. 310-916-7056.
Thank you both for coming on the show. Great information. I want to have you back because obviously we're just scratching the surface, and everybody's looking for an advantage somehow. And so maybe some of the solutions you're offering today can be expanded next time you go on the show. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you all there. Okay, and I'm Jeff Barton, your voice in the mortgage industry, and we'll see you next time.
You're listening to The Mortgage Voice with Jeff Barton. For more on today's topic, visit www.malibufunding.net.